Good morning, Bellows Falls, and welcome to the feed. It's August 22nd, and welcome back, Marty.
Thank you.
Marty was gone last week. She was doing some research into medical
Procedures.
Medical procedures, yes. And she'll come back and do a show on that sometime.
Yes, I had it filmed the whole time. Yes, there was a camera and there was filming.
There was filming.
There was
while
true. The procedure was happening. But
yeah, that's great.
Yes, well, it's good to be back.
It's great to have you back.
And it seems that you've been awfully busy while I've been gone.
Yes.
Setting up quite a menagerie
we
of...
decided we didn't have a guest this week.
Yeah, truth be told, we didn't have a guest, so we're improvising.
So we're improvising. We decided, well, why don't we talk about
Making TV?
Making TV, because it's what we do. It's what we enjoy doing. Mm-hmm. We've done it for quite a while now.
We've done it for probably...
I'm going to say 8 years.
At least. I was going to say close to 10.
9, or maybe 10.
It's been quite some time.
And so we wanted to talk a little bit about that, because here we are at Fact TV. It's an amazing resource in the community.
It is.
And it's underutilized. There are a few people that use it, but really if you thought about how many people could use it or might use it.
It would give Alex anxiety if the
if
full number of people that could potentially come in and use Fact TV did, then it would be quite... And the thing is we're also both on the board of directors for Fact TV. So,
full disclosure.
Full disclosure.
Yeah.
So we know that they have the most up-to-date equipment. It's getting more and more up-to-date. We make sure, as the board, being on the board, that we do keep the equipment in top shape, operational. So there's some really,
there's
it's a little hidden
equipment,
gem.
There's up-to-date training, and there's availability of time and training. So I think it's an underutilized resource. And I guess the three things we wanted to talk about today is that there are three basic ways that they do shows here at Fact TV. There's an in-studio show.
Which is what you're watching right now.
Right now.
So you could be here.
You could be a person in here, or you could be me, or you could be Marty. And
we have
you could
Groot's you.
Or Groot could be you. And so we do an in-studio show. And then the second show we're going to talk about is what I call the run and gun show. Is where you just you and somebody else get together. They put together a little crew. You go out and film something that you're really interested in the community and tell that story. Or you can actually tell a variety of stories. And then the third is more elaborate, I would say. It's the production.
Yeah, I think production is the
that the good
term.
word
yeah.
for it?
Studio production.
Studio production.
Where it kind of combines a little bit of both. You might do some
yeah.
in-studio shooting, but a lot of filming outside. You're seeing the whole process from script writing to post-editing to adding in special effects to like the whole thing.
Our example of that would be Strange Events at the Violet Bridge, is how those have been big projects that we've worked on here at Fact TV that actually were shown in the theater.
In the movie theater.
Yeah.
And I believe the second
episode
is,
we actually are hoping to work the last shots this weekend.
Nice.
So anyway, let's talk about the studio show.
Okay.
So how do you do a studio show?
You show up in the morning, and like this morning, this is what I had prepared this morning. I had a big fat nothing prepared this morning, but luckily Mike was very prepared this morning. So usually in an in-studio show, you have a specific topic.
Right.
It's something that has to lend itself to the studio, like a talk show type. Can't be a lot of action. Like I could do an exercise show within here, but it would be somewhat limited. It would be difficult to do in here.
Structure here.
So it needs to be something that kind of lends itself to the studio. You then have to find a time that one of the staff from Fact TV can come in and do what's called switching the show.
Right. Which is sort of goes off to the other side of things. So we want to talk about a little bit about the technical piece. And in an in-studio show, we have 3 cameras, and they're in Fact TV, they're set up so that there's a 3-camera shoot. There's a wide that has both of us, and there it is.
There it is.
There. Ta-da! We actually can coordinate these things. Wow. And there's a person out there switching, and then there's a camera 1 shot where it would be just me or just our guest, and then the camera 2 shot, which is Marty. And so there's the 3 cameras, and so.
But I don't get my name.
Yeah, how come? There you
How
go.
come? There we
And
go.
so one of the things that's cool about being in the studio is all of this is happening live.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening and it's being switched. So although we understand, as we sort of are aware of what's going on,
Right.
most people watching out in the audience that are watching TV don't really pick up on those things.
No, they don't. They don't.
It's just part of the you've grown up on TV and you've watched TV, and the 3-camera shoot is like a standard staple of TV, especially talk shows like this, and so it fits. It blends in. It's easy to watch.
Seamless. It's seamless.
That's a good
the
way.
switching,
That's a
the
good
switching
word.
that Alex is doing out there is seamless. He's listening to us. He's knowing when you're just talking, when I'm talking, when it needs to be a wide shot, and he's doing all that. It's also seamless because when we have guests, they don't realize that's going on. We actually
Right.
have a monitor that we can watch, so we could see what was going on. And most of the times, that's the very first question the guest asks us: is which camera do I look at?
Yeah, and we normally say don't look at any of the cameras.
Yeah.
Just talk, and if you really want to make some graphic point, you could stare at one of the cameras and do it because it's more dramatic. But typically, we don't even look at the cameras, and we're not aware of what they are. The advantage of a studio program is the art is actually, or part of the art is the switcher, is the person who is out there who you don't see. It's Alex today, but he's actually shaping the show. He's editing on the fly.
Exactly. So that's one of the big pros is that if you don't know or don't care to learn how to edit, you don't have to edit a studio show. It happens as it's being filmed.
Done. So when we complete our show today at 8 o'clock, it's done. I mean, they push the button and they can either broadcast the show or they can run a DVD of the show. So it's all complete. So the investment on the people that are producing the show, if you're talking about how easy it is to get into doing a program, this is the easiest way. I mean, your investment is really in thinking about your show, what you want to talk about, and then taking some time to plan it.
Yep.
And get guests.
You have to
and
get
things like
guests.
that.
You also have to. You'll notice that the lower thirds is the right term, right?
Yeah,
the
exactly.
things that keep coming up the lower thirds. You have to have a little forethought to that. You have to let Alex know ahead of time what your topic might be. If you're going to announce a website that you want to send people to or things like that, if you get that to Alex ahead of time, that's going to come up in the lower thirds. That's like pre-planning. So there's a little pre-planning that has to come in if you want to have that component.
Right, and this style of show works really well for, like, if you're an organization in the community, say you're the garden club. I don't know if we have a garden club, but the fictitious Greater Falls area.
So you were the Rotary.
Or say
and
you were the
wanted
Rotary,
to have
and you wanted to have a
Rotary.
show, and so that people would know what the Rotary does and why they do it and what their events are. They could come on and they could work out a show with Alex, and then they could do the Rotary show every week, and then it would be shown. And once you do the initial setup, the investment in time and effort is minimal. It's almost real time. It's almost what the time you spend on the show.
Right. I think it takes me. I do a production sheet each week for the feed that lists to get to Alex, and that's the thing too is if you get a formula, if you get like a set thing like a production sheet, it lists what our title, who we're having as a guest, what their topic is, if there's local events that I can find ahead of time, and so that he can have all that information ahead of time. But again, it's a minimal investment of time. Once I set that production sheet up, I'm just filling in the blanks each week.
So it's almost like it is a form
Formula.
that you have set up, and we run the same form every week, and we just change what's going to be different for that week, and then we come in and we do the show, and by the time we're done, we're finished. And like we schedule ahead, like I was talking with Marty, we're working on September, October, and November. Just lining up guests so that we could have people that come in, and that makes it really easy because when you have someone coming in, you know what you're going to talk about. They have an agenda, so they're whatever they're talking about is going to be their agenda, and it's going to be drive the script and since we don't have a script, it just drives the conversation.
Right, and that's one thing I think is kind of important to note for anybody that maybe is thinking about it. That's coming on a show like this, being a guest, is a good way, a low entry level way to get comfortable with how this happens.
Yeah, because it's surprising. It's always surprising to Marty and I, because I guess we've done it long enough now that we don't
And not nervous about
Yeah,
it.
we don't get nervous about it. But a lot of people really, they come
Oh.
in and they're like, what camera should I, they're really nervous because it's like, I'm going out to the public. But it's really, if you're just sitting here, it's not a big deal.
And it also, I think that coming on a show like this, that one of the things that people need to realize, and also if you decide to do a show like this, you as the producer of the show, it's kind of your job to get the information from your guests.
Yeah.
So that to make your guests
So
feel
what
as
are your
comfortable
favorite
as
questions?
possible. Who, what, when, where, and why.
And then it's that
It's that
simple.
easy.
It's that we ask everybody every week we come in and it's who are you? What are you doing? When are you going to do it? Why are you doing it? And
Goes
where
back
are you
to
going to
high
do it?
school, high
Yeah.
school, I don't know, essay production
Right,
or whatever.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not like,
It's not rocket science.
no, it's
No.
not.
We're sad
We
to let
shouldn't be
you
giving
down.
our secrets away.
We're sad to let,
Well,
because I
actually,
know
we're
you
very
thought
smart, and
You
it
thought it
takes
was
us
rocket
years
science.
of training to do this.
we had to go to production school.
Yes.
But-
Yes.
So what's the second type?
Well, the second type is and it's actually sort of my favorite type.
It's kind of my favorite type too, to be
Yeah.
really honest.
And
I mean, I like
what-
this in studio because it's easy. I don't have to think about it as much.
Yeah.
But truly, the second.
And the second type is what I like to call the run and gun show, is that you get together with a group of people that have a like interest, and you have people that want to do camera work and people that want to do some editing and people that want to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
And you go out into the community and you tell a story. And so the classic was Marty and I really got started with Run and Gun was Marty on the Move. And I wish, as I'm sitting here thinking, I wish we had some of the early openings.
Oh, the early clips, yeah.
Because we had this whole thing that Marty was going to go around town, and it was an idea similar to in content to the feed, in that we went to local merchants and we went to local events and we talked about what was happening. And the thing was, Marty on the Move, we had her riding this Razor scooter, and
Like
I don't
a
remember
pink- a
if you
pink
remember
Razor scooter.
a pink Razor scooter that she would ride. The idea was she was riding to the events, and she went down some hills and stuff that were like scary. But it worked. It worked
Marty's
out.
not
It was
particularly
fun.
adventurous with that type of stuff, so it
Yeah.
puts you outside your comfort zone. The thing with run and gun shows is you have so much more freedom
Yes.
to explore, to be out in the community, to do things. It's if you like the creative process, if you truly like creating something, creating a story, that's the run and gun, because you have so many more elements that you have
Right.
freedom with.
And there's like almost a formula that we worked out, and I think it's not like just us, but we worked out a formula where we had these forms that we would put together, and we had an opening, and then an episode intro, and then we would establish a location or a shot, and then we would do the content, all we ever wanted to talk about. And then at the end of the show, we would do an outro, and then we would close and do credits. And that was it. And we went through a whole lot of components.
We
'Cause-
did. When we were initially producing and we had that formula, the productions actually became really easy. We went through a ton of topics. We were producing one a week, which is a
Yeah,
big. That was a big thing to do, to produce that kind of show. Because run and gun shows, you've got to set up where you're gonna go to. You have to think about so many more things. And we would do them. We would run and gun. And we would do most everything in one take.
Yeah,
It doesn't always work
everything-
for people, but for the most part, I prefer one take. That's me personally. I don't get better on a second take. And then there would be the editing after the fact, and then we would get it to Fact TV, and it would be right out. And that's why there's one season that I think that we were producing about a show a week.
We did, yeah.
And,
We definitely did.
And then we kind of, I'll be honest, we kind of ran out of, I felt like we had touched on
Well,
everything.
it's a lot of
work,
effort.
and it can be a certain burnout, but we touched on a lot of topics. We hit a lot of content. And so sometimes with those kind of shows, you might get to a level where you kind of like let them rest for a little bit.
Yeah,
So
but
they
it
don't
was
get stale.
we worked out because we were doing exercise components, diet components. We did local events. We did parades, races, everything, and we would just fit it into the blocks. It was almost like building blocks of a show, and then we'd build that around. And Rick would always come in, and we would do some crazy opening with Rick about exercise, or we like to do film parodies. We did a lot
Yeah, we
of
did.
Officer and a Gentleman and different sorts.
And
of,
that was the fun part, and that's the part that that people kind of forget about, is that what if you put yourself in your head of what attracts you to watching TV, what catches your eye, that's where your opening is. You have to have something that captures people, and you have to capture them. You have about 10 to 15 seconds to capture them. So you have to, that's where our openings came in. We would have funny openings. We would have, like, we did that rap opening one time. It was you and me and Rick and
Rick the rapper.
And Rick the rapper. And we did these openings, these little short openings, then went into our intro, which was me saying what our show was going to be about. And then it was interesting to me when we first started doing it is sometimes we didn't do the intro until the show was done.
Yeah, because then you know what the show is going to be about.
So then you don't say that today we're going to have XYZ, and then we don't have XYZ. So
it's always good to do your intro after you know what you
intro
have.
and your outro at the same time. So
That's
we have
good.
an example. We actually have a
we
clip
do.
of your
We have a
newest
clip
running
that
gun.
we wanted to do because one of our new run and gun shows is Cellar Hole Investigators.
CSI.
CHI.
CHI. Oh,
Come on.
Come on.
We had to learn to write cursive. Letters must reach the top and the bottom of the line. Miss Clough had Albert Moore for the poor thing. God, I loved Albert Moore. I walked to school no matter what the weather was. It didn't matter. I walked home for lunch. I sometimes took lunch. That was a big treat for me to take lunch to school.
I'm Bob Haas,
And I'm Chris Bergman.
and
We're the Westminster Cellar Hole Investigators.
So that is a short clip of
That
a
is
run and gun.
that
And
is
it's I have to be honest, doing the show with Chris and Bob is just a hoot. I just and that's the other reason I like running guns. It's just a lot of fun.
It is fun.
Yeah.
And then, so
and
you have lots of toys that you use with
we have
running
lots
gun.
of toys that we use. Like you just in that we talked about they set up the photos. They found old photos of the schools and stuff that we did. But we use a camera like this. This is a Canon 77D. It has a detachable lens. We put a Rode mic on the top. It's a shotgun mic, so it's directional. If I point it at Marty, it's going to hear her. If I point it over here, it's not going to hear her. Which is one of the advantages and disadvantages of this.
Because sound is always the thing that gets
Sound is the most
you.
important thing, and you find yourself if you're trying to pan across or do something, you're moving the sound away. So one of the ways we deal with that is what we started doing in CHI is we're doing 2 camera shots now.
Okay.
And Sue comes with me, and we do 2 camera shots. So pretty much all the time, one of us is pointing at who's ever talking, and so we can then put that into the editing software, and we always get really good sound. But this is just a regular. If you take this apart, it's just a regular camera that you would buy at the store, and probably in the 1990s. I'll have to get together with Alex on this, but maybe it was the 90s or the early 2000s. The digital single lens reflex camera came out, and people started. It was originally for photography. It was like, okay, here we're going to take pictures with it, but then they figured out they could do video with it too, and so shows like Saturday Night Live and other networks started doing video. And it was like, well, wait a minute, this is really great because
it's a lot easier to carry than
instead of carrying this big thing on my shoulder,
Yeah.
I've got this little thing that I can put on a stick and point like this, and I can move quickly, or I can wear it around my neck and sort of be steady, and then I can change the lenses really fast. I can go from a sort of telephoto lens to a really wide angle lens, and it just creates a whole lot of versatility.
with
At
not
an
a
amazingly cheap
I was
price.
just going to say with not a lot of monetary investment or even a ton of equipment to schlep.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Is if you
And
think
schlep
about
and set up. I mean, look at how long it takes up to set up a full-on tripod and a full-on camera.
Right.
I mean, the big cameras
and
and all that
you,
stuff.
You gain and you lose because you gain in that flexibility and that ability to move around, but you lose sometimes in the quality of the shot.
It's true.
Especially if you get too carried away with moving and depending on because it's tough. It's
But if you're starting out,
Yeah.
path of least resistance.
Exactly.
And then you can
I
get-
really think it's the best. It's a lot of fun.
And then you can get really creative with this little character.
Yeah, and then then they move along because in the last how many years? 5
Probably
years?
well, probably
Maybe
not even.
4, 3,
I would say
2?
probably like 3.
Yeah, we start getting into drones, and these are now with a drone is affordable, and they've come down. This is actually probably the second generation, third generation drone. It's a DJI Mavic Pro. It shoots similar to this. You saw it on the CHI the feed.
CHI intro,
The drone shot there. It's easy to use. It's amazingly stable. It's
Takes a little
more-
practice, though, right?
It takes a
to
little
operate?
practice, but they're also programmed shots that you can put in, like that zoom out shot. That's a programmed shot.
Oh, you just put zoom out? Okay.
Yeah, you just
So
set it up.
So they're dummy friendly or
Yeah,
whatever?
they are. They're amazing. I had some people watch that and they go, "Oh, you're an amazing pilot." And I said, "Yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
great.
true."
So what are these other little teeny weeny cameras?
Oh, well, that's something that we as we get into, run out of time too.
Yeah.
Um,
That's why I was. That's the other
keep
thing
me going,
when
Marty.
you're doing a studio show, you got to be very conscious
Yeah.
of time.
These are action cams, and this to me is the next generation in how we do these shows. And I don't know if anybody watches Netflix, but there's a show that Jerry Seinfeld's currently doing with that's called Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, and they do a 3-camera shot, like with the studio here with this size camera.
Wow.
This is a Yi. It's a GoPro knockoff from China, and it's 4K, so it shoots at higher resolution.
I was gonna say
as
that's
the-
some heavy resolution then.
Yeah. You can do 1080p or 4K. It has a little mount on it. It has no monitor, no way of looking at it.
So you're shooting blind.
So you're
Not
sort of
really.
shooting blind, except you can use your smartphone as a monitor. And it has Wi-Fi connects to that. And then they're amazing. The Yis, GoPros are still in the, if you get a high-end GoPro, it's in the $300 to $400 range. Yis are coming out at $50 to $60.
Wow.
And so you could really set up some really interesting shots.
Well, because as a single GoPro, you could probably just, if you had a budget, you could maybe afford one.
Yeah.
But you could get
Yeah.
that variety of shots, and then you obviously edit those shots
Yeah,
together.
and so the way Seinfeld does it, and the way I'm going to try to do it, is you use a suction cup and you mount your Yi or your action cam to your windshield.
We don't recommend that you do that while driving, shooting your show. Oh, did Mike do it while driving?
But and so you
Okay.
can set up 2 of these and a third, and then you have a
long as you're paying
3-camera
attention
shot.
to the road.
You've created a studio in your car.
Do you have a clip of
I
that?
just happen to have a clip. I don't have a 3-camera shot. I have a single
Okay.
camera shot of a show that we're looking at doing, and maybe Alex can go with it.
It looks like you combined some drone footage.
Yep, so that's all drone footage and footage from these little cameras.
So you had one camera on the road, one camera on you.
Yeah.
Then how did you get the shot of underneath the car? You
Put
had to be
the
inside
little
of the
tripod. This is like
Okay, and you
this
drove
little,
past it. Okay,
yeah,
so
drove
there's some
over it.
production. There's some production to it.
Oh yeah, there is. It's not.
and that's
it's
and
not
that's what I
instant.
think. That's what I think people have to realize is there's. You have to. You do have
You
to
have
put
to
a
put
lot
together
more
some idea.
creative.
You have
But
to
that's
be
what makes it
creative,
fun.
but- yeah, and so you're looking at it. You go through the covered bridges, and I mean, it just makes for an interesting shot. And then our idea is we'll eventually go out and like go to the Cornish Fair or do something, and then we'll have we'll talk about it as we go along and see how that works. But that's how you could do a run and gun. And then the last, I guess, we're not going to get to this, but is the production where you actually, if you think about strange events, you have to have a script. And you have to have a crew, and you have to have
the whole
shooting
gamut.
schedule. And you can ask Alex about this. It's incredibly stressful for Alex. Who's ever the producer's
Whoever
going to
the
be,
producer,
because
yeah.
it's trying to you're herding cats, trying to bring all these different actors in together. They never read the script until it's the day of shooting, and then they all have a different opinion about how the script should be shot. And then so he's like the King Solomon, like, okay, we'll keep half the baby, but you get to have this other half of the baby. And so it's an interesting thing. If you're interested in doing that this Sunday, check it out and call the station.
And if you're interested in
producing a show,
call the station or check with Mike and I. We can give you some information. We are out.
Yes.
No,
we're
no,
not. This is
sorry.
our
Okay.
number. We got 463-1613.
I wasn't looking at I was not reading it. So yeah, and we can give you some information. It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. That's the most important part of it. It's fun. You should do it if you want to have fun.
So next week on the feed,
What is next week on the feed?
we're not quite sure what next week on the
But
feed
we're going to have
is.
to make something up.
We
between
may
now
be
and next
doing
week.
TV production part 2.
Yes.
But hopefully by next week we will have a guest.
No,
So
we have some people coming up. We have Jesse Haas wants to come on again and do some stuff. Chris Bergman is going to do a Thanksgiving show here in a little bit. That's going to be all Native American foods.
can't wait for that.
Oh, that's going to be great.
All right, we'll see you next week.
All right, see you next
community.
week. And thanks for having us.
That's it, folks, for the feed. Be sure to catch us every Wednesdays at 7:30 a.m. Also, find us on Facebook at Fact TV or tell us what you think. thefeed8@gmail.com. And don't forget to watch the feed online at www.fact8.com.